Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. So happy to have you here today. Today in this video, I'm going to show you how I made this little gift box with these little gift cards. They're just 3x3 cards. And it's a little bit of a long video because there's a lot involved with it. So please bear with me and thanks for watching. So here's what we're going to be making here. I've got this little box here and it's colored inside and out, and I've made 4 little gift cards, little 3x3 cards. They're blank inside. They're all tent folding, top folding cards. They're all just a slight bit different from each other, and then I made these envelopes out of 6x6 paper. Anyways, it looks all cute tied together with a bow, and you can do, all different cards if you want to. I just, in the interest of time, since I made 3 or 4 prototypes before I finally got this right, as far as the box measurements go, and we'll get into that a little bit later, but it looks really cute with this little kind of frosty looking purple ribbon around it, if I can ever get the ribbon back on. All tucked neatly inside the little box that's completely colored inside and out. And I do use watercolor paper, and that's why I had some fights with my measurements, because they were a little bit off because of the thickness of the paper. But let's go ahead and get started, and I'll let you know what we have in our supplies. Okay, so I've got these pieces of watercolor paper, and there are plenty of videos online how to make these, but my measurements ended up being for the top 5.5 by 5.5, scored at 1/2 inch and 1 inch. And you can see my score marks there. And the other one was 5 3/8 by 5 3/8, scored at 1 inch all the way around. That'd be for the bottom piece. So, yeah, you need a little, it's a little bit loose, but it's okay. And then the card fronts are 2 3/4 a piece. And again, on watercolor paper. And I will be working on the smooth side. I'll also be working with one of my handmade masks, actually a couple of them. And I will be working with fairy hug stamps today. I have the fairy lights here. Let me get some light on this so you can see it a little bit better. Or the party lights. I have the Condo dwellers. And I'm just going to use one of those. I have these adorable little mice, and I'll be using this one here on the left. And then I've just got this hanging vines. That's all there's going to be to it as far as stamps goes, but you can go any way you want. And I'm going to be using multiple inks. I change my mind throughout, and so, but I do use the Lawn Fawn because I like the small cube for stamping the little mouse. I'll be using Distress Oxides for the background mostly. Prize ribbon, Wilted Violet, and a little antique linen. And I ended up using some Lucky Clover. I'm going to be using these gel pens, and I also have some sparkly pens that I'll be using. But I'm going to first start out by just go ahead and scoring these fold lines a little bit, because I'm going to need to trim them later. I'm going to need some sort of a guide because the paper gets kind of dark. So I'm just going to score all the way around, but I'm not going to do any trimming yet. I'll trim after I've finished stamping and coloring these box pieces. And this is just, again, kind of for guidelines for later when I need to trim these down. And also so I can keep everything kind of centered. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my little mask on. And a little goober on there. And just make sure it's nice and stuck down. And this one I've used before, so I'm not worried about it being too sticky. And I'm going to start out here with my Wilted Violet here. And I'm just going to ink up my little blender, and I'm just going to blend all around that. Kind of willy-nilly. It's not important that it's perfect. I'm going to go in now with the prize ribbon and just kind of go around the outside edge of that purple. And just make sure it's covered. Again, I'm going to be spraying this with water, so it just does not have to be perfect. But I will go around and kind of deepen that blue in a little bit. And here's where I change my mind, and I go in for the Lucky Clover for the outside edge. I don't know, just changed my mind. Happens. And I'm just going to blend that in around the corners. I want to cover the entire piece. And we're going to color these actually front and back so that we have a fully filled in box. I'm going to go back in with my blue a little bit here in a second. Just kind of blend that out. And again, this is the Distress Oxide and Prize Ribbon. And then I'll go in with my Wilted Violet a little bit just to kind of, again, blend stuff out. Okay, once I've got that all blended out, I do want to clean up here. You guys are going to have to excuse my dirty fingers. I've done 2 or 3 prototypes before I finally got the size of the box right, so I just keep doing them over. I have all kinds of box lids. I'm just going to wipe off my mask there, and then I'm going to use the negative of that mask, and just with a little bit of antique linen, I'm going to go in and just fill in the center. And I don't want it too heavy. It's going to get dirty. Just, I promise you that. It's partly because of the water spraying. So I'm going to go ahead and spray this side with some water and let it sit for a few seconds, and I don't care that it went over my little circle there. It's fine. And I want to wipe up my mess again because I'm going to be flipping this over and I don't want to get the ink on my little moon sun. And this time I'm going to go in starting with my prize ribbon and just kind of color all the way around. And I'm just adding color in here with no really actual rhyme or reason. I will go around the outside edge with the Wilted Violet and put a little bit in the center. It's just for color so that our box looks finished. And I'm you know, leaning more towards this piece being purple on the inside, but with just a little hints of blue. And you'll see once I water that down how it changes. Just kind of wipe up a little there, get some water on there, get my paper towel, and there we have this side done. I'm going to go ahead and wipe up my mess, and I'm going to work on the bottom of the box. We're just going to set the other one aside to let it dry. You can dry it with your heat tool, but just be careful that it doesn't warp too much. So I did do some drying with the heat tool and it did just fine. But I'm going to go ahead and start this one with the Lucky Clover because I do want all the colors to coordinate. I'm just going to go all the way around the outside edge with the Lucky Clover. And yes, I do have this video sped up because it's already a pretty long video. So I don't want to, you know, take too much time with the parts that are pretty redundant. You know, put color on, spin it around, blend it in best you can. And my prize ribbon's getting a little dry on me here, I'm telling you. Because usually this will blend much better if you have a nice wet pad. But also I am working on the bumpy side of the watercolor, so I just go ahead and fill in the center there with the purple and go back in with some prize ribbon around the outside of the purple. And then just go ahead with some of the Lucky Clover to blend that. Nope, I don't. I just water it. And then I'll go ahead and just lift that, clean up my mess, flip it over, and I'm going to do a lot of purpley inside around the outside edge. You can see my Wilted Violet is a lot more wet compared to my prize ribbon. I need to re-ink. So I'm going to go ahead and then go in with the prize ribbon and just kind of make a little kind of circular motion here, get that filled in. And then we'll go in with some of the Lucky Clover. And I already had plenty of ink on my foam blender. Those are from scrapbook.com, by the way. Go ahead and water that down and let that dry. Once we've got both sides dry, now it's time to assemble the box. And so I'm going to assemble the bottom part of the box, but we're going to leave the top part of the box for after I'm done stamping. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to trim it along one edge, and then I'm going to just kind of make a little bit of a divot or something like that in there, and do the same on the other side. Then flip it over, do the exact same thing, so cut right along that score line, and then just trim some down, just like the corner of it. You don't want to trim the whole piece down. And trim the corner off that piece. And you trim those down so that you don't have overhang on the box. I'm going to go ahead and trim this one down and make that little corner cut there, and that corner cut there, and then finally I'll do the last side and trim again, make my little corner cut. And I kept this real-time speed so that you guys can kind of get a good idea of what we're doing here. Again, there are a million tutorials online for how to do this. So, you know, didn't get into detail of cutting and scoring and all that. So I'm going to go ahead and fold these tabs in. I'm going to get my reptile adhesive and my bone folder. And I'm just going to go ahead and lay glue down on each one of these tabs. Get that all nice and straight there. And when you're gluing these Distress Oxides, it takes a little bit longer for the glue to stick, especially if they're kind of wet. So I'm just kind of pinching those down and holding them down best I can so that it'll stay still. Once I start rubbing it down with my bone folder, then it sticks really good. I just think that looks nice with the inside and the outside of the box finished. And honestly, you could do, sky's the limit. You just want to be careful about anything on the sides of the top or the bottom so that you lose your fit. Normally it's around a 1/16 of an inch. If I were to measure like a real person, if we measured in actual centimeters, you could probably get a closer fit. But I just couldn't be asked to work out the math on that today. I've been kind of sick, so I'm getting over it. I'll go back to work tomorrow. And I'm just going to rub those down, and see that one there, I didn't like the way it was fitting, so I just pull it back up. And then go ahead and just press it down with my bone folder. And there's the bottom of the box. All right, now let's get busy on the top of this box. First thing I want to do is I'm going to get out my Misty tool, and I got my mini Misty. I'm so excited. I love this thing. I love this thing. I'm going to go ahead and lay this in here, and I do have a piece of Sizzix double-sided stick paper in there. So I'm sticking it down on that. And I'm going to grab the plane of these lights, these party lights, and decide on placement. Where do I want to put these? I'm going to go ahead and lay my, set it on the lid, and I'm going to get my Lawn Fawn ink here and just tap it down on those lights, and just like that, they stamp perfectly. I'm going to clean them off because I want to put one more string here. And I don't mind if they overlap a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and stamp these down again in the Lawn Fawn. And I am putting it in my stamp positioner tool just in case I have to stamp it twice. I did fine with these, but the little mouse, I've been having some problems with him because he's got spaces around him that you really can't avoid. And so what I have to do is I have to put a lot of ink on and lightly stamp without pressing down too much, and then just stamp again, and he stamps out fine. But if you press even a little bit, he'll get this weird halo around him, which is very annoying. I'm going to go ahead and grab one of my fairies here, and I'm going to place her up by these lights in the moonlight, and go ahead and stamp her down with the Lawn Fawn ink, and I'm done with the stamping platform. I'm going to go ahead and pull that out and put it away. And now I am going to be working on some foliage. But first I need to give him a base to sit on, basically. So I'm just going to rip some scrap paper, and I'm going to lay it so that both his feet are on it. I'm going to go ahead and use the VersaFine Clair in Monarch. And I don't mind if it gets dark. Just want to get some ink down there so that there is a foundation. So go ahead and grab my hanging vines, and I'm going to grab the solid one. And I am going to put this on my little skinny stamping platform. And I'm going to stamp that out with some Warm Breeze from VersaFine Clair. And I'm just going to stamp it along the bottom. No real rhyme or reason, just kind of fill the space in. And then I'm going to go in with the Twilight and stamp it again, so that I have some variation and some depth in my little field there. So just real quick stamping. And I'm done with stamping now. It's a pretty quick project. The hardest part is getting the measurements right. So what I want to do here is I'm going to go ahead and color in those lights. And I'm going to be using the lightest colors on the dark portion of the image. So I'm going in with some yellow and some really light pink. And just kind of vary where these colors are and just fill in these little lights. Going in with sort of an orange, and I think these are fluorescent little pens. I didn't realize it when I bought them, but that's okay. I mean, they work just perfect for this purpose. And I think I'm going to go in and get another yellow one right there, and a yellow one right there. And let's grab this kind of orangey pink one. And I'm just trying not to get two colors right next to each other and vary them in color as much as possible. You could do them all one color. You could all do them all white if you wanted to. That would look cool too. But I'm just going to fill these guys in. I want mine colorful because I am not afraid of color. And I'm going to go ahead and putting these darker colors inside because they don't need to glow as much because they're already glowing from the light of the moon. Okay, so got all my lights down. And I'm going to go ahead and get these are my sparkly pens from Kaisercraft. I'm going to color her wing in with some goldish orange. And then I want to color in the little lantern. And I'm going to now take a Q-tip, and I'm going to grab my white ink, and I'm going to use the unicorn white from Hero Arts. And I'm just going to make little puffs here and there. And I already have some in there from my water, but I want some directed in some of the darker spaces. So I just kind of put little you know, smears, little round smears of color of white in there. I'm going to take my white Posca pen and give it a shake, and I'm just going to put a little dot in the center of each one of those little white inks. And I will put some dots in the center of some of the places that color was removed as well. So we just kind of get a twinkly feeling there. I'm going to go ahead and put a dot of white on each one of these lights to give it some dimension. You could also put some glossy accents on there or some glitter, whatever you want. This is just kind of a party thing. Maybe the notes inside could be little thank you notes from a themed party or something. Entirely up to you. But I'm going to take my little silver pen, and I'm just going to put some silver along his whiskers, the top of his nose, and some of the lantern. And this stuff does dry back a little bit. And then I'm going to grab my black, and I'm going to outline and color this little mouse. Because he didn't really, once I put that little foundation on, he kind of got lost. So I figured we'll put some glittery, sparkly stuff on him because I do have this black sparkle pen. And it goes on pretty quick and easy. There we go. Let's just go ahead and get a little bit more in that tail and those feet area. It does make him stand out a little bit more. And I'm going to take my green, and I'm just going to make some tendrily things because I want to add, just to introduce a little bit more color. Now, I don't want to put, you know, any clashing colors or anything like that, but I just want to add to that foliage. I'm going to take my yellow Posca pen, and I'm literally just making dots. And I'm thinking about the shape of a tree or a branch or a bush while I'm doing it, but it's just dots. But it adds a lot of interest into the foreground. So I like to do these. I think they look pretty neat. And I'm just putting them in, you know, pretty random spots. And I don't mind that they go down the sides at all. I think it's charming. I'll put a little bit of extra ones here. And I'm going to grab my pink one, and I'm just going to do some random pink dots, not all close together, but just randomly on the little branches. Again, just to add a little bit more brightness and color. And so that's that. I just want to let it dry a little bit. And then I will go ahead and start with the shaping of the lid. So now that it's dried, the magic of video, I'm going to follow those score lines. And see, I have to bend it because it's hard to see it on the dark part. And I'm going to clip out just the beginning parts of both of those through both. I'm going to clip this one off. I'm going to trim this one off. And then I'm going to, again, kind of miter in so that those are basically, you know, fit nicely without getting folded over each other. I'm going to do that same thing on all four sides, doing that little miter. And on the other side, it's easier to see. It's just really dark right here, so it's kind of hard to see. I mean, you could do it beforehand if you want to, and I did on my prototypes, but I decided on this one not to. Just, it might be easier stamping and coloring if they're there, if it's not, doesn't have little flimsy pieces on it. So I'm going to go ahead and flip it over and see, you can see this side a lot better. I'm just going to cut all the way down to that corner. I'm going to cut all the way down to that second line again. I'm going to snip this off with a little bit of a miter. Going to snip that off completely. And then go ahead and miter these little edges. And we got just one more little corner to go here. I forgot to miter that side. You want to miter all of them because, yeah, it just makes the box go together better. I'll go ahead and trim all the way to the corner. I'm going to do my miter here, if I can get my scissors to cooperate. I'm going to go ahead and just chop those two off. And you'll see me, I do it differently each time. It's just a matter of what's convenient. As long as they're pretty much going the same way all the way around. And then need to go ahead, and I need to miter that side too. Looks like I forgot to do it. But you'll see they're going to come together, and then that part is going to fold around it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, for the moment, bend these back out of my way. And I want to take those little tabs and fold them in. I'm going to use my reptile adhesive, and I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on each side. And as I said before, it's a little bit longer to dry on this watercolor paper, but the end result is just too amazing. So I'm going to go ahead and fold that up like yay. And I know it's kind of hard to see, but I'm going to get these little guys to fold in and grab there. You see how that grabs? I want to make sure the outsides are nice and even. Once I'm convinced they're nice and even, I'm just going to kind of hold it together, and then I'm going to take my bone folder and make sure it's good and stuck down. Now, the cool part about folding the next edges in is that they kind of help hold those little tabs in, because it's just a small little space holding that together. I just want to make sure that stays even there. I'm going to go ahead and fold these two tabs in. And again, just put some glue on them. I'm going to do the exact same thing. Just making sure all the corners meet nicely. Can get fiddly. I want to make sure there's no glue sticking out on the outside. I'm going to go ahead and burnish that one down before I get on this one here, because the glue's still pretty wet. And I'll go ahead and burnish that one down. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing next is I'm going to be putting tape on these flaps and glue. And the reason I'm putting tape is because I want them to stick down quickly so they can hold down those other tabs. So I just take my tape and I just tear off a piece. Y'all, this tape has been around for years. I've been making boxes for a long time. I haven't made any in a while, but I started a video tutorial on doing a set, but I haven't done anything with it yet. I wasn't happy with the results, so I figured I'll leave it. I'm just going to go ahead and pull off the backing paper off this tape, and then I'm just going to put a thin strip of glue all the way around it. I'm going to fold it in. I'm going to kind of hold it, then I'm going to flip it. I'm going to take my bone folder and I'm just going to push it down, make sure that it's nice and stuck. Yeah, it's sturdy. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the other side exactly the same. Just add some tape. Burnish the tape down. Get my little tool, pull off the backing paper. And then do a bead of glue just around the edges there. And this glue does dry clear, so I'm not too worried about if it gets on the outside too much. You know, I want to avoid big clumps of it, but if a little bit, you know, oozes out in the corners on the inside, I'm not mad. Won't hurt anything. Okay, 2 more sides to go. Looking pretty neat, huh? Okay, we'll get my tape down. And I didn't want to speed through this part because, you know, I want to make sure I demonstrate it enough. And I realized that it's hard to see me burnishing it down with my bone folder because the way I'm holding it, but I want to make sure that it's nice and straight. So I'm just going to fold that in and burnish that down. And these sides stay down a lot faster because they're not holding onto those tabs. And just a little tiny excess there. And then I'm going to work on this last edge. And this thing, I'd venture to say it will probably hold 6 or 8 3x3 cards and envelopes. It might be pushing it with 8. I made 4 for it, and you know, if you squished them together, you could put a lot more. So it's a cool little idea for a gift set, you know, with holidays coming or even birthdays. Well, let's just say a family member, you know, like a kid that you're trying to get to learn how to do thank you notes. If you gave them this little set, then they have already the note cards. All they'd have to do is write them out. So here we go. Now the box fits together perfectly. I do want to go around the edges with some ink, and I'm going to use let me see, what color am I going to use? I'm going to use the Monarch. It's one of my favorites. And what I'm trying to do is just make sure I cover up any white core and change my mind because I decide I want it to be darker blue. So I'm going to go ahead and go in with the Twilight, and I'm just going to get these corners and just kind of, you know, grunge it up with color just around the edges. Just kind of make it a little bit more cohesive and make sure there is absolutely no white core showing at all. I don't mind light color showing through, but I don't want the white core. It just looks funky. Again, just go in and get any kind of corners, get these bottom edges. And then I will go ahead and do the same thing with the bottom because there is some white core sticking out. Now you can do the bottom with the folded inside as well if you want a finished look. What you need to do is then, instead of cutting it at, what did I say, 5 3/8, you're gonna need to cut it at 6 3/8 so that you can fold over an inch, and then I'd even do scant that. There we go. So there's our little box. I will be putting some embellishment on there, not a bunch, just a little bit. But I want to, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and use the Seize the Day from Honeybee Stamps embellishment. They're sort of a purpley, greeny, iridescent. They go perfect with these little cards or with this little box. And I'm just going to pour some in my little dollar store container here so I can pick out some colors. And then I go ahead and I put my glue down first where I want them to be. And then I will glue them down with my little wax picker tool, a little wax jewel picker tool. And I couldn't even tell you the company it comes from. It just came from a set that I got on Amazon with little rhinestones for fingernails. So I'm just going with varying sizes of these little doobie-doos. And just popping them down. Go ahead and say it. I know you're gonna. Ready? 1, 2, 3, boop! Kathy, you ruined us all. Okay, so that's my box top. So all we need to do now is just go ahead and make the little cards to go with it. And when you're working with a tiny piece of paper, it doesn't take long at all to whoop them out. So what I'll do is I will grab a mask again, a little bit smaller, and I'm not going to go into great detail again on these little cards. You could. I mean, you could, sky's the limit with what you could do with it, but I'm just going a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and lay down a smaller mask. Yeah, that size is going to work. Now this mask I haven't used yet, and I just cut these from my transfer paper. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of lay that on my skin, get a little oil on it, get a little bit of lint from my clothes on it so it doesn't get too sticky. And I'm going to lay that down right, you know, not really in the center, just kind of off center a little bit. Doesn't matter. It can be in the sky, wherever you want it to be. And I'm just going to use the two colors. I'm going to use the Wilted Violet and the prize ribbon on the cards. Let's see, do I have enough ink? I don't. Okay. Like I said, my prize ribbon is running low. I'm just going to fill that in with the prize ribbon. And you can do these, you know, 4, 5, 6, the same, you know, do this part, do the next part, do the next part in repetition. And that's what I end up doing. But I do, you know, I will be doing the rest of them off camera. And what I found out there was my little mouse did not want to stamp very well by hand. So with the rest of them, I used my Misty tool. Because I'm not a person who can hit it twice in the same spot ever. I like to go ahead and clean off my mask because I'm going to use it again and I don't want to get anything dirty. I'm going to pull the mask off. I'm going to use the negative of that mask. I'm just going to set it aside. Use the negative of that mask. And I'm not even going to put any ink on my brush, but I'm just going to go in with my brush that had the antique linen on it and fill in the little moon. And got that filled in. I'm just going to pull that off and I'm going to go ahead and spray it with a little bit of water. Get my little watery globs on there. Just to make it match with the box top. And I'm going to go ahead and just wipe off the excess water or dab it off. And we gotta now just go ahead and you can see that the moon has got like little white spots in it too, makes it look more moony. I'm gonna grab my little stamping block and I'm gonna put my little mouse on there. And I'm gonna go ahead and go in with the VersaFine Clair and Nocturne, and that's a mistake. Don't do that. Don't do what I do. It just doesn't. I just recommend with these to do them on a stamping platform and just stamp down very lightly. Because I end up, one, he doesn't stamp very well, and two, he gets a little halo around him that I end up trying to correct, which is not ideal. That's all. It works out, but it's just not ideal. Because I can't stamp him again, and I don't really want to paint over him because I don't want to lose any of his detail. But I'm going to go ahead and do a, try and wipe that up a little bit and do a little, you know, a little foundation for him to be sitting on. And I'm going to do, I guess I'm going to do the, where'd they go? Here they are. I'm going to do the foliage first, and I'm only going to do one color, which is the Warm Breeze in the VersaFine Clair. Okay, so once I finish that, I'll go ahead in with the Twilight and make his little little foundation that he sits on. And I'm getting stuff piled up here, aren't I? That is the nature of how I work. I just don't really take the time to put things away before I move on to the next thing. I'd rather go in and put it all away at one time. It doesn't take long. But I decided to fill in that bottom part a little bit more. And yet a little bit more. I'm just not happy with it. Yeah, I was not happy with this first one. The rest of them I was, even though I accidentally put the wrong colors on one of them. Actually, two of them I end up putting the Monarch around the little moon instead of the purple, but it looks really pretty, so I'm okay with that. I'm just going to go ahead and edge this all the way around with the Monarch ink and just kind of willy-nilly. Just kind of deepen down those edges a bit. And I already have some pre-made card bases that I made last year for 3x3 cards. So basically it's just a piece of 6x6 paper, so scored at 3 inches, and then folded over. And I will go ahead and put some of the little embellishments that I did on the previous one, as far as my white ink and my Posca pen. But I'm going to go in and also just instead just do my Posca pen in some of the white spaces that are already there from the water. And because they're not exactly white, it still gives it that brilliance. That poor little sad mouse, he's just not covering that at all. And I'm going to go ahead and put in my crazy bushes. I'm just going to call them from here on out crazy bushes, because they look crazy, but they actually really work well. Just little dots, little dots. Make that one kind of high up, growing wild. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm trying to fix where I got that halo. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to coat this with some of this yellow Posca pen, and then I'm going to just put some yellow spots here and there on the moon so it looks like they're supposed to be there. I know, it's not ideal, but it's what I did. That works out okay. I mean, it looks okay, but I'm not an okay kind of person. So you'll see the other cards actually come out better. Anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and get my little gold pen and fill in the lamp. Then I'm going to stick them to a card base. And I will be putting them on card bases and the others off camera. So you will see the final picture at the end of this video. I do appreciate you stopping by to see me here today and spending some time with me while I make this little box. And I hope to see you again soon. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and please leave comments in the comments section. I'm happy to answer questions or take criticism or whatever. Appreciate you. Thanks for stopping by.